You're about to learn one of the most delicious and effective recipes for boosting your overall health. Okay, this is an absolute favorite of mine. It is my go-to year-round, but especially during those times of cold and flu season. It's one of those things that has helped me not get sick. It's always my go-to. Plus, I just love it. It's actually a go-to every day, any day for any kind of dish, any kind of soup, any kind of seasoning. Love, love, love fire cider. Now, I'm sure many of you might have even created a fire cider or have seen it, worked with it, heard of it. I'm going to show you my take on it and how to do all kinds of variations, because really any type of ingredient that you have, you can add in, and I'll show you a spectrum of different ingredients as well as some upgrades. And we're going to have some fun here showing you how to build a fire cider. Post your questions as well. So as we're going through this, post your questions down below. Maybe throw out some of your suggestions. What have you done in the realm of today? Obviously fire cider. The name of the game, the theme, the series that we've got going is easy upgrades. Things that are super easy that you can just add in that are going to help upgrade your overall health. I've been through, it's been almost 20 years, no, it's been more than 20 years of me following this path of food and nutrition, and I have literally turned my life upside down, at times gone 110% this direction, then this direction. You go down all these rabbit holes. That's great if you want to do it. For me now, I love what my friend Yara Willard says, being a flexitarian, right? An opportunivore, just being more open, being more inclusive, and just having more fun with food and making it easy, making it simple. So do whatever you do, right? Each one of us, we all have individual bodies and are in individual stages of life and health, and we need different things at different times. So do what you do. You've got it figured out, more or less, for you, for your family. And what I love to share with you are just simple little easy things that you can add in. It's not getting you to change your diet. It's not getting you to do X, Y, or Z. It are simple, easy recipes that are quick, they're wonderful, they're tasty, and they are going to be beneficial for you and the whole entire family. So here we are. Let's dive in. Fire cider. This is a super good one. Now this you can use in a number of different contexts. Like I say, it can be added to a soup. It's going to have a spicy, a savory, almost like a sour-like flavor. So anywhere you can imagine, you want like a hot, sweet and sour, spicy soup, boom, you can add that in as a seasoning. I like to even just take it as a quick little shot. So here's a batch that it's been going down. This started off in a 1-gallon jar, and I've just been going through it. This is a couple years old, and that's testament to how long this stuff will last. So once you make a batch, you are good to go for a long, 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 long time. So I've got my kind of main mother batch there, and then I'll pour that off into smaller jars. So I've got this one in the kitchen here. If I want to pour a lot to a recipe, let's say making a salad dressing, and instead of just reaching for a vinegar, I'll reach for the fire cider, which is in a base of vinegar, and I'll talk about how you build it. You're bringing not only that vinegar taste and element, but everything else you've added in there, all its medicinal and flavorful properties. So that's for kind of larger amounts in the kitchen, pouring that in. Then I put it in a little tincture bottle. So let's say I'm out and about, I can have that in my pocket, add it to my lunch if I'm out eating at work, or if I'm really trying to okay, everyone's getting sick, it's still that cold and flu season time, then I'll have it in a tincture bottle and I'll be taking it straight throughout the day, and that's a really good boost to your immune system. And it's just so delicious. Really, really, really good. Really good. So anyways, let's dive in. I want to show you all kinds of ways and to make this. I've got a lot of things pre-chopped, so you're not going to see me here chopping onions and my eyes tearing up. I've got it all ready to go, so we're going to make it really quick, really simple. All right, let's dive in. So fire cider, lots of different ingredients. This is a traditional folkloric recipe where as many people make it, you'll see those variations in the ingredients themselves as well as their amounts. This is just one version. Again, in the recipe, it's all in there step by step, but today I've got everything pre-chopped. It's just going to be kind of more that method. I'll be throwing things in a jar, haven't specifically measured, but let that be a lesson as well. It doesn't have to be exact. This is definitely a recipe you can have a lot of fun for lots of variation with. So you will need a jar. Choose something larger. 250 ml, not going to do it unless you really just want to experiment. You really just want to kind of get your feet wet and try it out. I'm going to say at least 1 liter beer, but absolutely you can go half gallon, 1 gallon. So get a jar that you want to pack the ingredients in. This is going to sit for 2 to 4 weeks once we have everything packed in. So a jar that you can have just set off to the side and let it be in there. So we're going to add onions, garlic, ginger, turmeric. You can add fresh horseradish root. Again, anything goes, but we really want those kind of like pungent, immune boosting, medicinal, tonic, vegetables and herbs, spices in there. So they're going to go in, but what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to add in some of the dried herbs and spices first. Again, choose your own adventure of what you'd like to add in there. I've got some black pepper, so black pepper and coriander, those are going in. Thyme and oregano. We all need more thyme, right? Throw in some thyme. So again, antiviral kind of herbs, antibacterial, really good for building, boosting the immune system. So that might have been about a kind of a teaspoon of each. So I'm going to pack those on the bottom. A little bit of dried rosemary, right? So again, think about the flavors you'd like to see come through that have those real medicinal-like qualities. Some dried sage. This is, at this stage, a choose your own adventure, right? In terms of the herbs, the spices, if you want cumin in there, go for it, right? So mix and match, come up with some nice flavor combinations. Reason I'm putting a lot of those dried spices and herbs on the bottom is if I put them on the top, they're just gonna float to the surface. So I'm gonna pack them in, make sure they're at the very, very, very bottom, and it should hopefully help hold them down and they don't float to the top. And I'll talk about that in a sec, why we wanna do that. I'm gonna add in some chilies. So we've got these ones, whatever you got, they can be fresh or they can be dried. These ones here are what we call bird's eye chili peppers. They are super hot, super hot. We got them whole, we got them dried. We're just gonna add them in. I've already got a bunch. Now this is depending on your level of tolerance for heat, desire for heat. You can choose different types of chilies. Again, fresh or dried, jalapenos, cayennes, bird's eyes, habaneros. Choose your own adventure. Yeah, we'll put them in. Now these are optional. Slices of orange or grapefruit. We can pop a couple of those in, add in that little bit of citrus element in there. Put a couple of slices. I'm gonna save a couple for the end as well. So they're gonna almost act like a little bit of a mat, holding some of those dried herbs and spices down. And this is just gonna look beautiful as we continue to build it up. So now we've got our onions, garlic, and our ginger. That's all nicely pre-chopped, diced up as best as we can. You can throw it in a food processor. You could even throw it in a blender. However, I find if you do it in a blender, it almost gets it too pureed, and then it has a tougher time keeping it down, packed into the jar. So as you put all these ingredients in, start packing them in, try and reduce the amount of air pockets, air bubbles that are in there. And if you don't have fresh turmeric, all good, totally optional, right? Onions and garlic are really key. Ginger is fantastic, so whatever you have. And I know a favorite of a lot of people is horseradish. If you have access to the fresh horseradish root, you can use that as well. Interesting little tidbit, this is a new wild food in my area in Calgary, Alberta. We have, in fact, a lot of horseradish that grows around us. So it's out there. It's amazing. You can actually find it, dig it up, and get that root. Or even you can even just use the leaves too. The leaves are fantastic. They have that same type of bite and pungency. All right, fresh rosemary. I got some of that. I'm gonna put a little sprig of that on top. That looks really nice. Now we're gonna add in a couple of those oranges, top everything off, just slices. Okay, that's gonna hold everything in and down quite nicely. And that's looking beautiful. All right, so we got everything packed in. Now, essentially, one of our last things that we want to do is now we're going to pour on the vinegar just to make sure it's going to cover everything. So we pour enough vinegar to cover all the way to the top. Now you can use, let's say, or if you're into making kombucha or jun, and you get one of those ones that's kind of like, just want a little bit too long, a little bit too much like vinegar, you can actually use that. So anytime you have a batch of kombucha that kind of goes quote unquote off, goes too sour, you can save that, and that's like a vinegar. So you can use that in this case for making your fire cider. Other options that you can pack in here. What about any other superfoods, herbs, medicinal mushrooms? So things like camu, really good for the immune system, high in vitamin C. I would definitely add a little bit of camu in there, right? Just pop that in. That could be a teaspoon, a tablespoon, whatever that is, and that's just going to add to the overall flavor and effect of this amazing fire cider. Medicinal mushroom powders, things like shiitake, maitake, cordyceps, chaga. You can add things like that in there. So I've got a little bit of shiitake powder, so I could put that in. And honestly, I forgot. I should have put the camu and the shiitake at the bottom, but it can still go in top, no problem. Add those in, and essentially our last ingredient here. Let's finally get that in. That is our cider vinegar. Okay. So we pour that in. So apple cider vinegar, you want definitely the raw apple cider vinegar, one that still has the mother in it, which is those live cultures. So we're just going to let that kind of seep down. It's going to make its way through to the bottom, through all the chopped ingredients. And we want it just to penetrate, saturate all the way. You can still see a couple of air bubbles down there. So I'm going to wait for that to kind of fill, make its way to the bottom. And we want to replace all air pockets. So we have apple cider vinegar throughout this jar, and what that's going to do, it's going to pull and extract all the flavor and all the medicinal compounds into it at this stage. Now, once you've got that in, once you're happy with it filled up into the jar, we're going to let it sit for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, just out at room temperature. Let it sit there, let it extract. Essentially, this is almost like a vinegar tincture in that way, where it's pulling out all the goodness, all the flavor, all the properties into itself, where you can have, like this, started off the exact same color, right? But as it extracted and did its thing, as it sat there, it pulled everything into the vinegar, and we have now a much darker, more potent, aromatic, and flavorful vinegar, having extracted all that goodness. You don't need to do anything special here. Main thing is, we just want everything to be covered. We don't want things floating on the surface, sticking out of the surface. If it's exposed to the air and not in the vinegar, then we could be dealing with mold, right? But the vinegar is going to keep everything well preserved. We don't have to worry about bad bacteria. It's going to be perfectly fine. Yeah, we'll let that sit. So I would cover it. It can just be a light loose cloth. If you do have things that are like sticking up out and it's kind of poking out, you can do a number of things. You can get another mason jar, which is not going to work for this method because you need a little bit more space. But if you give yourself a bit more headroom, you can fill another mason jar that will fit in the wide mouth with a bit of water, and it sits there and it helps kind of hold that pressure, keep everything down, submerged under the liquid. One other thing you can do is there's all kinds of fermentation weights. These are just glass. They're called pickle pebbles. You can get small and large sizes. Those can fit right into a wide mouth mason jar, and they fit nice and snug, and then that helps everything hold everything down, submerged under the liquid. So those are really good. You've got a couple of different options. Main goal here is everything should be in the vinegar, submerged, and we won't have to worry about mold or bad bacteria. If everything's in that vinegar, we're going to be all good. Got that submerged. Basically, now this is ready just to sit for 2 to 4 weeks, loosely covered, making sure everything's submerged. Once it is done, once you have it all submerged, then your next step is you want to strain it out. So that could be a really fine mesh kitchen strainer, or you'll get a nut and seed milk bag, pour that through, press it out, make sure you get all the liquid out, and that liquid, that's now your fire cider, right? So transfer that to another jar, put some into a tincture bottle, however you want to take it. Again, this is something that you can take by the shot, by the squirt. You can dilute it in water. You can add it to soups. It's a seasoning. It's fantastic everywhere. If you're trying to avoid those colds and flus, you're feeling it, you want to take it several times throughout the day. You might be doing teaspoon, tablespoon, 6, 7, 8 times a day, just to kind of keep that in your system. And this is something that will even work while you have a cold or flu. It can help reduce the symptoms. It can help shorten the duration. So definitely, even if you are sick and you've already succumbed, then hitting up your fire cider is a good thing to continually do as well. Go for it. This is an awesome recipe for that. And once you've strained it out, that pulp that's left over, again, you're going to have all the kind of the fiber from your vegetables, from your herbs, from your spices. Most people just compost that. Don't do that. That's still good stuff. You'll notice it's still got lots of flavor in it. You can use it as kind of like a fresh herb and spice vegetable paste. You can throw it into soup stocks as well if you want. We'll still add a lot of good nutrition, a lot of good flavor. Or one other suggestion I really like, and I did one year, was I took all that pulp and I spread it out and I dried it. So either in the oven on super low, or if you have a dehydrator, just gently dry it into and then powder it. So once it's dry, powder it, and now that becomes a fantastic spice mix, right? You've got all these ingredients, all that flavor, and you can just like dry it down into a jar, top any of your food with that, and you are good to go. Have fun with this, play with it, come up with all kinds of different variations. Oh yeah, one quick last thing. You'll see honey as an ingredient on the list. What we want to do, once you've strained it out, you've got it in your jar, it's optional, but it adds a nice texture to it, adds a little bit of sweetness from flavor, is you add honey to your liquid. So you've let it ferment, you've strained it, you've separated it out, then you can add just a little bit of honey. So the honey, also being very medicinal, will help with those colds and the flus, but adds a little bit of sweetness to the sour, to the spicy. So it helps just round out all the flavors. Choose any kind of good raw honey, add that in. Or I thought, hey, propolis, you know, if you're going for that super kind of immune boosting effect, propolis is fantastic, and that's a really good choice of a honey that you can add to your fire cider as well. So think about all these different variations, have fun with it. This is a great recipe that you can do at home. And you know, maybe you might like it super fiery. I know people that have their own kind of like private reserve, you know, with the ingredients they love, like extra garlic and extra chilies. And then the one for the family, a little bit more mild, a little bit more toned down. And you can play with all kinds of variations. You can have a him and a hers and a us and a thems and a family one, and however you want to do it. So have fun with this recipe. Post your comments below. Let us know how it's going. Let us know any kind of unique, fun variations that you came up with. Would love to hear your successes with fire cider. Enjoy, keep healthy, and stay tuned for the next episode. All right. Hey, Instagram, you're still